Hey, good afternoon, everyone. You see here, April 9th, a little after 3 Eastern time. So just want to get started and go through the weekly video. So QQQ, weekly view, right? Still overall okay, right? It's holding the sort of the right shoulder area. I mean, if it plays out like that, you know, there you have the double bottom right here. And now if it can maintain some structure above 345, that can form a right shoulder. But with the whole fundamental interest rates and stuff like that, the pressure is still up to the downside. But that said, anything can happen and patterns can play out. So we'll just do what the price tells us to do. Okay. In the daily time frame, there was this flaggish sort of a price structure, but then once we saw this particular bar, you know, it was pretty obvious that it wants to kind of move down, and then we saw a big gap down midweek, and then the price couldn't really get back above that gap, right? We did see a pause bar, sort of a bullish bar after this big gap down, but no buyers stepped in or couldn't even take the price above the close of this one, right? So it's pretty weak so far as well. But the way overall higher time frame structure is, right? This was the right left shoulder, double bottom here, sort of a head. And then if price can maintain some consolidation here, keep it above 345 or even let's say 340, I would say, and then consolidate, and then we can go in the lower time frame to see when it crosses above the downtrend line, things like that, and then you can start swinging in towards the top end of its recent structure, with 372 being the sort of the neckline, right? We have sort of a little bit of touch points here that it got rejected from. We had a really nice rally going on in the past few weeks, but then this whole thing kind of turned sideways and then down. So nothing too exciting for bulls right now. We still have this gap fill on the top side, and then let's see what happens next week. But so far, it's just weak, right? I mean, if I bring the other levels in here, this is the sort of the channel that it is trading in, lower time frame, right? So to feel bullish or you know, trying to start playing long side trades easier than the short side ones, what you need to look at is 356. That's the first level that it has to get above. We have quite many touch points right there, right? So if we get above the downtrend line, then the big test is 356.3, and then we'll see if it wants to go higher towards 362, because that's where it kind of broke down from. Monday or Tuesday, whenever price you know, goes towards this downtrend line, that will be the test, and see if it gets rejected and if it wants to go down below 348.5 and touch 345, right? So, but as long as it's in the down channel, quicker trades are going to be on the short side, okay? The better setups, okay? All right, let's go into Amazon. It is having a hard time getting back above its uptrend line, right? It broke down right here, tried to get back above it, couldn't do it. This was the downtrend line. It sold off, tried to get back above, and it, you know, saw a little bit of nice follow through to the upside. But we saw these top wicks right here in the past few weeks, so that meant selling pressure, and it's having a hard time getting back above. With the stock split news, you know, yes, buyers can step in towards lower prices because this is the stock split that's going to happen sometime in June. So we'll see what happens, but earnings is coming up as well soon, so that can kind of, you know, give us some clues as to what would happen. But in the lower time frame, a good setup for trading perspective could be a back test of this broken downtrend line, right? It got back above here, got sold off, and now if it gets back down here, somewhere around here can be a good swing entry, with this being a stop loss to see if it can get back above. But of course, we'll play if it goes there, right? You just kind of plan for it, right? The level to watch, if I bring the levels, is going to be 294, 2947. That's the area of sort of the back test. I think this is this is not right. We'll just have to change this one to kind of make some. There you go. So something like this. So if it drops here, you know, we see a big drop down, then get back up, that's nice. But in the lower time frame, let's say 15-minute, this is the channel, right? Let's see if that does not play out and it starts to go back up above. So 31.35 would be the first level to watch on the upside. That was because that was the intraday swing high for Amazon on Friday. So that's always the initial resistance going into the next week. So if it can get back above this downtrend line, 31.35, we have a gap filled towards 31.55 as the first stop, and then 31.75. To overall bullish on this name, I think if I look at the daily view, and let me get rid of these charts, you really have to get back above 32.50, right? Because structure-wise, that's where we had all this consolidation, and then boom, it just kind of fell through it, right? So this was sort of the level that it was holding above 32.50 in generally speaking, and then we have a little bit of gap there as well. So once it gets back above that, sure, you know, I mean, it has to be a big test over here that it can get back above that. Otherwise, it can make a lower high or something like that. So keep an eye on that. Apple, I always like to take clues from that, especially when I'm trading futures as well, because QQQ and NQ kind of follows Microsoft and Apple a lot in that way, so it can give you good trades. Anyways, Apple, same kind of story. This channel down channel in the lower time frame would be nicely visible. I'll show you that in a minute. But if from trade perspective, if we see a move down Monday, Tuesday towards 166, we can play the back test of this broken trend line, right? Higher time frame, let's say weekly time frame. From the weekly time frame, yes, it has, you know, given us two straight weeks of top wicks, so that's a selling pressure, and now we'll see if it wants to give a follow through to the downside. We have a big bullish bar right here with that low being the support line as to target on the downside if we kind of break down below this downtrend line, right? But I would like to play these on the upside as well, just a bounce play, right? Of course, not going to hold it for long, but if you want to swing it, sure. If it gives a close based on a bounce from here, if it gets a close above 69.2, 170, you know, you can be cautiously long with the stop loss being the low of that day. So this is the lower time frame channel that I'm talking about, right? So this, as long as it's below this downtrend line and channel, it remains under pressure. We'll see if it can get back above this one. This is sort of the, you know, range that it was trading in the past few days. So it has to get above 174.4, 175 to kind of start moving on the upside. Okay. Tesla, everyone's favorite. Let's go to weekly view, right? Perfect rejection from the uptrend line, right? That was sort of in my previous videos. If you see the weekly updates, we have these touch points, and we got this last touch point. So I think at the fourth time that touch point does not, I mean, if it gets tested, I think it will break out, because that's just, the chances are higher that if it's going to do that. So we'll see if it happens or not. But for now, we got a rejection, big bearish weekly bar, sort of a gap fill here around 121, but actually it's 111, but we're almost there. We'll see what happens if it wants to somehow hold this level or not. In the daily time frame, it's just a difficult read a little bit in itself, because there's no particular pattern here in the daily time frame except from the, hey, this was the gap area. It almost will fill that if it goes towards 1011, and then 1000 being the sort of the psychological support level, and we'll see what happens. But you know, definitely worth a bounce trade there around 1000, at least the first touch bounce. But to get back sort of in a bullish tone, it has to get back above this you know, dual top here on Wednesday and Thursday, right? We have this 1079. Remember, I was telling you about it has to get above 1079, 1087 level for us to start playing the bullish side of this thing. Of course, you can play bullish side on the intraday time frame as well, but if you want to play remain with the trend, the good way is to stick with the higher time frame. So here's how the chart looks in the sort of 30-minute time frame with the channels. You can see this whole 1087, 1083 area is where all the sort of the resistance comes into play. So if it can get above that, sure, we can see the move higher towards previous month's highs. But as long as from trading perspective, yeah, sure, if it gets above 1048, that's where it kind of gets above the downtrend line. Sure, we can play that trade towards this 1079 and then we can monitor. But if it gets rejected, back down 1021, then we have gap fill and then, lower levels to trade. Okay, let's look at Microsoft. Again, similar to Apple, I think. Let me get into a weekly view. It's just, yeah, I mean, if it can back test this downtrend line, we can have a tradable setup. But from weekly bar perspective, that's exactly where sellers have been showing up, so no surprise there. Sort of this bar exactly looks like this bar, so we'll see if it wants to go back down, back test it, and then come back up. We'll see what happens, but that's how you can kind of plan for it. In the day frame, similar look and feel, right? The back test would be around 289 level, so not bad. If it breaks 294.9, that's where I can target it going towards 289. For a higher time frame to look good, it has to get above 307 because that's where it gapped down from, and then it made a high, tried to attempt to get back above to close the gap, but it couldn't do it. So 307 becomes the level to watch on the upside. Okay, SQ. Let's go into weekly time frame. Still okay, from a higher time frame perspective, right? We had good bearish week, I would say, right? And it couldn't really break down, right? Yeah, I mean, we have these top wicks a little bit, but it's not really an impressive downside follow through, right? We're still above this clutter zone that it was trading in. This was the breakout. So we are above that breakout level, right? It's closed weak, but did not really, break down. So in a daily time frame, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of down, but it's holding. It couldn't really break down below Thursday's low. So if it trades around this uptrend line right here, something like that, that can be a good entry for to play the upside, right? With this being the stop loss around 105, something like that. This was the sort of the channel that we were hoping that it would remain above, but once we got this bearish bar, this was a good setup to play on the downside, right? So we'll see how and it goes. If I bring in the lower time frame, here's the channel that it's trading in, and you can target it on the upside once it gets above 127.5, because that's not only the intraday resistance from Thursday, but also sort of the Friday high, right? So that means that is a significant level to see on the upside. Once we can get above that, we have 130.9 and then 134 as a bigger level resistance to target. Below 122, 120 level, it breaks down, and then we can see if it wants to continue its move down towards the bottom of the channel. Okay, Nvidia. Let's look at the weekly view right here. Big bearish week on Nvidia, breakdown, and now it's getting very close to the back test of its downtrend line. That could be a good setup because all these bounces have been in this area right here, 206.5 being the low of that area, and then 210, 208 level can be an entry. But if I go into, let's say, daily time frame, yeah, we did trade the downside on this name all this week. Actually, really good trades, setups, lower highs. You can see no bullish bar sees any upside follow through. If you get one, this is the only one in the past, I'd say 6 to 7 days. So yeah, it's just weak. This is the area that it broke out from, right? This was the cluster zone. It broke out right there. So we are right there actually, right? So on Monday, if we see a move down towards the low side and then it gets back up above, good, nice trade to the upside. I think that can give you a good upside trading setup, but it has to play out like that. That's what you have to plan, right? for it to act like that. So right now it's weak, and we'll see that's where it meets the downtrend line to 18 to 20 level, something like that. Boeing, let's get into weekly time frame. Still nice, consistent, slow, methodical channel to the downside, right? Making lower highs, right? Every time it wants to go back up, it makes a lower high, and then just kind of breaks down further. So we'll see what happens if it can manage to hold this channel bottom, and then if it wants to get back up around, we have a gap fill area here as well. So it could be that it wants to maybe bear flag in the lower time frame and then breaks down once and for all to go and just fill this damn gap. We'll see. But for now, in the daily time frame, it is bearish, right? It was I think I provided somebody an update in the chat as they were, oh yeah, it was Kelly, right? So this was the sort of the pivot, right? This was the level it wanted to get back above. It did that, and then it showed some bounces there, and that's where it broke down from. So continuing from that perspective, 181, 182 is sort of the pivot line. Only if we can get back above that, we can target higher prices. As long as it stays below that, the chart is weak, right? No bullish bar. We have this hammer bar, sort of a bearish, not bearish in itself, but bearish because it's a red bar, but it's a hammer bar if you just look at it by itself. But we couldn't even get back above that, right? So once we see above that 178.7, we can see if it wants to go and target the gap fill area. But for now, it just remains weak. So we'll just have to play it at one time at a day. And this is the channel bottom here on 162, 158 being the gap fill. So that could be a good swing entry right there. If it gets there against the low, just keep in mind earnings is in a couple of weeks, so that can throw a twist. Okay, let's take a look at a few more. Google, okay, weekly time frame. Yep, rejection from the uptrend line, bottom wicks, top wicks right here at the 2830 level. So that shows it's weak. It couldn't even really bounce from this area that it broke out of, right? This was the area, so it couldn't really do that. That shows you it is weak. And now let's get into a daily time frame. Just gap downs, no bullish upside, no green bars, no attempts, even weak attempts at all as well. But the good thing is that it is right at where it started breaking out from. So if it can give us a bullish day on Monday, somehow bottom wick, bullish engulfing, doji bar, whatever, but it's some indication that it's holding this level, that can be a good bounce play to the top side, right? But if it breaks down below, let's bring out the levels around 2643, right? Because that's where we have this double bottom, right? If you see, that's where it's a good level that it bounced from, so, or it actually broke out from. So if it gets below that, or if it can give us a bottom wick from here, that's a good swing, I think, seriously, to the upside. So we'll see what happens. But on a lower time frame, this is the trend line, the downtrend line that you would like it to get back above for a continuation on the upside if you're trading like that. But right now it's just weak, because as long as we are below this trend line, bearish setups will pay you better and quicker. Okay, what's left? Shop. Okay, shop. Weekly time frame. Yeah, I mean, this was the big bullish bar that it saw zero follow through to the upside. In fact, we got these two inside bars and a bearish breakout, right? So multiple ways to play this one, right? And the way it is that a lot of traders look for this breakout to fail. Okay, so if what I would look for or setup can be, this is a weekly chart, so the setup is on the weekly chart, right? So you'll have to wait for one more week for it to show up like that. So the setup is, we got this bullish week, 2 inside weeks, and then a bearish breakout. Now, if this breakout fails in a way where we get sort of a doji bar, something like, let me show you, something like, you know, like a trend bar failure. So this is a trend bar, right? This is a bearish trend bar. So if we get something like this, that means there's no downside follow through. So that means you can take a long the following week with the low of this bar as your stop loss to see if it can get back above, because that means shorts did not see any follow through, and any move to the top would probably get them to cover, and then you will actually see a short covering rally, and it just kind of takes out all this level. So we'll see how it plays out, right? But in a daily time frame, right now it is weak, right? So it has to get back above its this down channel to play the upside, right? This is the down channel. This is the intraday high from Friday's around 621 level, right? It broke down, tried to get back above that, and this just failed. So this is the level that I would keep an eye on, because this is also Thursday's low, right? So some significant level to look for the upside breakout, because that's exactly where the downtrend line also meets it. So sort of a triple play here. We'll see how it goes, but that's how you want to kind of target this this name going into the next week. Okay, so let's take one more look. Netflix weekly chart still weak. Bounces get sold. Top wicks here in the past few weeks, right? No upside follow through to this this bullish weekly bar. We have earnings coming up. We'll see what happens, but for it to start rallying to the upside, it has to get above this 398 400 level, because we have these sort of you know, multiple touch points right here. So it has to get back above that to start going back up, otherwise it remains weak. We have only one touch point here where it broke out from, so if it gets below that, it can go further weak. But with earnings coming up, you know, it can just kind of stay a little elevated. And I think some big investor also took a position in this name, and that's why we saw this big bullish move to the upside. But so far it's not seeing any follow through to the upside, so still weak, right? We'll stay with the trend and just kind of trade accordingly. And if I bring the channels, here are the channels in the lower time frame. You know, if it plays out on the upside, let's look for 362.5, 370 to be taken out on the upside, because that would mean the price is trying to get back above the down channel. Okay. All right, guys, I think this was it for this week, and I'll spend some time also talking about the patterns here in the next video. Hope you guys like it. If you have any comments, questions, please leave me a note. All right, thanks, bye.